is Gloria De Piero, of course, a former
Like the good old
Labour
days.
MP, now GB News presenter as well. But, Gloria, let's dive into Wales first, because I've been looking at the numbers, and the first rule of politics is to learn to count. The Labour Party in the Senedd have 30 seats. All opposition parties put together have 30 seats. The convention is the Speaker will break in favour of the government, so there's one vote in it.
Yes, but look, this is a general election campaign going on. How do you seize the initiative if you are the opponents to the Labour Party in Wales? Then you put this vote of no confidence down, which is going to dominate the news agenda. On that particular day, we're talking about it today. You're not going to win, but it stops the Labour Party talking about whatever they want to be talking about. A bit like, actually, the Tories are doing quite successfully at the moment in the UK, whether that be about national service or apprenticeships today. But today's Labour story of Diane Abbott is probably, well, it's absolutely self-inflicted.
Well, how is it self-inflicted?
Well, so a decision has to be made on whether Diane Abbott is allowed to stand in her constituency. My suspicion, I don't know this for sure, my suspicion is that the Labour Party probably did intend to let her in before the election, which they thought was in November. And so if you do that, you know, if you think we can do that in May or June or July, you know, it's not urgent. As long as it, and then people have forgotten about it by the time. Now, of course, we're in the middle of a general election campaign. Diane Abbott is a very controversial figure. Some people, particularly, you know, some young graduates who might be tempted to vote Green, they will love Diane Abbott, many of those people. Some people in the Red Wall, people who rejected Jeremy Corbyn at the last election, they will be far more sceptical about Diane Abbott. So either way, it's not easy, this. This was not in the grid and yet we were talking about Diane Abbott.
No. And yet much of the reporting around this seems to suggest that there might have been some sort of backroom deal done about Diane Abbott being able to go out with grace, saying that she was retiring rather than being forced out. Sir Keir Starmer putting out a video about her service and everyone being happy Labour families. What clearly happened at some point this week was someone within the Labour Party did not like that plan and leaked the fact that she was being blocked to the Times, because the Times ran this story and Labour didn't deny it.
Look, I think we can sort of get into the weeds of this.
The weeds are important.
The fact is that we are on the day that the Labour Party, a party which, you know, everyone knows I support, have a big announcement on cutting waiting lists, 40,000 a week in the NHS within the first year of a Labour government. That's what today's story is supposed to be about. Instead, we are talking about Diane Abbott. I'll just give one word of advice to my party, if I may. Next Tuesday is when the National Executive Committee meets to determine, because you've got loads of retiring Labour MPs, to determine who will be the candidates in those seats. We cannot be talking. Diane Abbott will be the story until next Tuesday. A word of advice to my party, make a decision now. Do not let you guys be talking about Diane Abbott.
But what do you think the right decision is? Because let's cast our minds back to how this all kicked off. And she wrote a thoroughly offensive letter in The Observer where she appeared to compare the prejudice faced by Jewish people to those faced with my colour hair. I mean, that is an outrageous statement, thoroughly offensive. Why didn't Keir Starmer just boot her out at the time?
Well, he suspended her. We have processes. It's gone on far too long. It's now erupted during a general election campaign when the Labour Party want to be talking about the NHS.
This is the perennial criticism of the Starmer machine, sort of how it's so shrouded in mystery. And, of course, what he said when he was running to be Labour leader, and many people supported him on this, I think it was a sensible thing, let's take the disciplinary processes out of the politicians. We'll give it to an arm's-length body, and so people can't meddle in these processes. But this arm's-length body seems to be pretty political in and of itself. It treats some politicians differently to the way it treats other ones. It lets in Natalie Elphicke and abolishes Diane Abbott. This is going back to those bad old days of spin under Tony Blair, of hiding things and of undemocratic processes.
So there's a national... I mean, I can't believe... I mean, if our viewers are interested, there's a National Executive Committee and Keir Starmer has the majority on that committee. And that will oversee, that will determine solely that panel, because we're in the middle of a general election campaign, that committee will determine who will replace. And I think it's like 15 vacancies. There'll be no local members.
And there are more vacancies coming up all the time. And there have been some reporting that some members of the NEC might have been pretty friendly with some of those standing down.
This is a bit nitty-gritty. But it's your point that Keir Starmer, you don't particularly care what decision is made. Go on, tell us, what do you think should happen to Diane Abbott?
Well, you see, my mind is in the place of the seat that I used to represent. So I think, reluctantly, I would say she cannot stand, because I can just see, fairly or unfairly, Diane Abbott and Jerry Corbyn, that wing of the Labour Party, they are toxic in those parts of the country. But, you know, if I represented, I don't know, some trendy Bristol seat...
Islington North.
I would be saying, oh, my gosh, she's got to come back in, because I will, you know, they'll all vote Green if we vote
I'm sure we all remember in 2017 when Diane Abbott was Shadow Home Secretary, and the last week of the campaign, she was seemingly not Shadow Home Secretary. Do you remember this, when she was when it was briefed out to the papers and journalists that Diane Abbott had taken a leave of absence in the last few days of the campaign? But that was the position, and the position isn't always the truth.
No.
But it does get to the point that perhaps even Jeremy Corbyn and Seamus Milne and the people at the top of that machine perhaps saw her as a liability in 2017, just when they were surging in the polls.
You could perfectly prosecute that case. No. We won't know, because we're not Jeremy Corbyn or Seamus Milne.
Well, there you go. We'll find out what happens. As it stands, Keir Starmer says no decision has been made on Diane Abbott, despite lots of reports to the contrary in the press. But thank you so much, Gloria De Piero.
It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get Gloria back very, very soon.